Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the Oakland Raiders versus Miami Dolphins Week 9 matchup based on analytics. Each week, I collect all of the current 2017 NFL team data in order to analyze and project potential NFL performance. And since it's a weekly collection, there will always be some variation, if you will, in terms of data each week. However, there will always be little nuggets of truth that become bigger nuggets of truth as the season continues. So stick around as I analyze each week's matchups based on analytics. And if you're new to the channel, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So starting with this matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Oakland Raiders. When you look at the NFL stat basic comparison data, the Raiders are favored, but very, very slightly. The overall data has the Raiders 22.68 to the Dolphins that are 18.58. So that is really close. Now, important to note, the Miami Dolphins traded away Jay Ajayi. Jay Ajayi is, I'm not going to say he's the most important offensive player on the team, but with Jay Cutler injured and with all the stuff happening, you don't want to see this happening. You don't want to see one of your best running backs go. No team wants to see that. So I definitely think it will affect things for the Dolphins. So I think that might give the Raiders a bit of a boost in this game. But overall, let's get into some things as to why. So why the Raiders are favored in this game. First off, turnover ratio. The Raiders are better in terms of not giving up as many picks, turnovers, stuff like that compared to the Dolphins. Sack percentage also favors the Raiders. The Raiders are a little bit better in terms of preventing sacks compared to the Dolphins in that respect. And offensive score percentage, which is the big thing here. The ability to put points on every single drive. The Raiders are just better than the Dolphins in that respect. When it comes to the Raiders offense and their ability to put points on the board compared to the Dolphins offense, which currently is a 3.31 out of 100. The Dolphins are pretty much one of the worst offenses in the NFL since 1998 in terms of their ability to put points on the board, which is it's not good. And they just traded away one of their better offensive pieces. So, not great. Defensively, though, the Dolphins have it here. The Dolphins are better in terms of defensive offensive score percentage. The Dolphins are better at preventing points. The Dolphins are slightly better in terms of creating turnovers. And the Dolphins are also better when it comes to creating sacks on defense. And these are areas where the Raiders have just been non-existent. They haven't been able to get sacks. They've not been able to prevent points on defense. And their turnover ratio, the ability to create turnovers on defense has been non-existent as well. And I mean every type of turnover. Fumbles, picks, every single thing. The Raiders have not been getting it done. It's kind of embarrassing. The lack of ability to actually get turnovers. So this is definitely a concern with the Raiders. So again, these are like completely opposite teams, in terms of offense and defense. Then of course when you get to special teams data, when you look at punt return yardage, kick return yardage, that kind of stuff. The Dolphins are favored in terms of punt return yardage. The Raiders are favored in terms of kick return yardage. Preventing punt return yardage is more so with the Raiders. Preventing kick return yardage is more so with the Dolphins. Field goal percentage is more so with the Dolphins. Extra point percentage is more so with the Raiders. And punting average is more so with the Raiders as well. Special teams wise, I would say that this slightly favors the Dolphins, in terms of field goal percentage and those other sort of factors. But overall, it's not the best sort of look for this team when you look at the overall data from that kind of perspective. Then, of course, when you look at micro matchups, so looking at different down and distance data, when you look at completion percentage data, so the Dolphins versus the Raiders when it comes to completion percentage, and the Dolphins are favored here in terms of second and third down situations. Now, a lot of this data is favored by Jay Cutler, for the most part. I mean, this is team-based data, so whatever Jay Cutler did to begin the year, this kind of reflects that a lot. But you don't realize how bad this Raiders defense has been. So basically the Dolphins will have success passing against this Raiders defense, pretty much. Then, of course, when you look at the Raiders offense versus Dolphins defense, The Raiders will have success passing in this situation. First, second, third down situations, the Raiders will have success in that area. Then, of course, you look at the Dolphins offense versus Raiders defense when it comes to rushing downs, and the Raiders defense is actually favored here. The Raiders actually have a fairly decent defense in terms of rushing defense on first down situations and third down situations. So if there was one thing I could praise the Raiders about, it's their ability to stop the run. But other than that, that's about it. And then when you get to the flip side, so you look at the Raiders offense versus the Dolphins defense, similar situation. The Dolphins have it in terms of first down situations, second down situations, and third down situations. The Dolphins actually have the best third down defense in terms of preventing the run out of every team in the NFL. So definitely an area where I think there is some success to be found because of that. Then, of course, you look at passing downs. Dolphins passing offense versus Raiders passing defense. And this more so favors the Dolphins. The Raiders are the worst defense in the NFL currently when it comes to stopping conversions on third down with their defense. So definitely an area that I think the Dolphins will have success. Even though most of this data is based on Jay Cutler, any quarterback in the NFL could have success against his Raiders defense. That's just basically what the data is saying right now. Then, of course, you look at the Raiders offense versus Dolphins defense in terms of passing situations, and the Raiders are favored here. First down, second down, and third down situations. For as much success as the Dolphins get from people, they're not that great against the pass. And this has been a current thing that's continued on. Second down situations, third down situations, they just crumble when it comes to passing situations. And ultimately, because of that, I just got to go Raiders here. When it comes to the passing situations, every down, the Raiders just have an advantage there. So I think the Raiders will have success passing against them. Then, of course, you look at sack rate. Dolphins versus Raiders. Heavily favors the Dolphins. Raiders do not create a lot of sacks. So even though the Dolphins are the worst offense in the NFL when it comes to preventing sacks on third down, I think because of the type of defense they're going up against in the Raiders, I think they will still have success in that respect. Then, of course, you look at sack rate for the Raiders offense versus Dolphins defense. In this respect, the Raiders are actually favored here at first and second down, but I think third down will be a big thing to consider, with this game. The Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of giving up sacks on third down. Not as bad as the Dolphins, but pretty close. And this is an area where the Dolphins get a lot of sacks. This is one of those areas where the Dolphins are pretty good in terms of that particular thing. So ultimately, this is how I factor in some of this stuff. So I think the Raiders will have success, but I think third down situations might be a crucial situation to kind of consider and monitor because of this. Then, of course, you look at interception ratio for the Dolphins offense versus the Raiders defense. The Dolphins currently have 0 interceptions this year. 0. So whatever issues that the Dolphins may have with picks, this Raiders team doesn't really get a lot of picks, doesn't really create a lot of turnovers. So from that perspective, I wouldn't worry, is all I'm trying to say. Then, of course, you look at the Raiders offense versus the Dolphins defense. And in this area, I would say it's a little bit more evenly matched. Most of the picks that the Raiders have thrown have come in second down situations and third down situations. Most of the picks the Dolphins have been able to generate have been in first down situations. But ultimately, I would say this is pretty evenly matched in that respect. I think that, this is kind of how things are stacking up because of that. So ultimately, my general thoughts about this game, I think it's a Raiders victory. I don't feel good about it, but I think that when you have a dramatic change, Jay Ajayi is on the Eagles now. I think you do have to consider some things here because of that. So ultimately, that's just kind of how I feel about this game. I think Jay Ajayi will have some potentially some issues here, because Jay Ajayi is no longer on this football team. I think there will be some issues to consider here. So overall, that's kind of how I feel about this game. I think the Raiders will win this game. I think it'll be a close game. It'll be pretty fun because of the Raiders defense. But I think ultimately the Raiders will be able to have some success, and I think losing Jay Ajayi will provide somewhat of a shock to this offense as well. I think that it will, there'll be some issues to kind of deal with because of those factors. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.